Last week I started polishing an older project of mine. This week, some updates. But before I start, let's recap what this is even about. SlingNoJump, working title, is a speedrun-themed collectathon-esque game about swinging around a level and destroying different targets. I'm not 100% sure yet how I want to structure these devlogs, so for now I'm just going to talk about what I have done and give some short explanations, hopefully enough that you could replicate some of it yourself. That doesn't mean that I'm going to give you a line-by-line coding example, but I will talk about how everything works conceptually. This week I worked on getting the main mechanics in place, with a focus on movement. A major part of this game is, as the name implies, to sling yourself around instead of walking. So the most important thing to get working was the hookshot. So here's how I did it. Connected to the character are two hookshot holder nodes, as I call them. These could be some kind of gun or crossbow once I decide on a visual style, but for now they are just invisible. Once the game starts, each of those creates the actual hook, or claw, as I'm still working with the prototype's models. In the prototype I had some trouble getting the hooks to stick to the character as I was walking around, so I just added them as children of the holder nodes. This originally gave me some headaches, as this meant that I had to constantly reparent those nodes whenever they got shot, as otherwise they would just move and turn as the character moved, even if they were already mid-air. So this time I decided to just add them to the scene's root node directly and manually move them with the camera. It is important to note that I get their positions updated in the process function instead of the physics process one, as this would result in some stuttering since physics update fewer times a second. The hook/claw itself has some parameters defining how the character is supposed to be pulled. Since I wanted to sling the character around, I decided to somewhat emulate a rubber band. The hookshot's rope has a max distance it can extend, after which the claw would automatically be retracted. But it also has a distance in which the claw would not exert full power. There's always a minimum amount of power exerted, but after a minimum length, the pull strength quickly increases. The way I model this rubber band of a rope is obviously not fully realistic. The pull strength is only based on the distance between the hook and the player, and it fully ignores possible objects between them. But there is at least the advantage that you can still use it as more of a swing shot if the hook target is somewhat close to you. And I think that this is fine for this hook. I am currently playing with the idea of adding multiple ropes, some more realistic than others, which would give slightly different game feels. But this is out of the scope for the demo. A big problem I had with the original's gameplay was that it was really annoying to reach platforms. The easiest way was to fall down a bit so you could build momentum upwards. But this felt really bad if you missed the platform just slightly. So I added a way to ledge climb. The check is really simple. I just use 3 raycasts. If the one on body height detects the wall and the one above head height does not, while the character is running into something, the third raycast calculates where the floor is and where the character should end up after climbing. Then the player loses control for a moment as the character automatically moves to the calculated position. The advantage of doing it like this is that it is really easy to implement. Using the third raycast for platform detection also allows me to quickly change how high of a barrier I want to make climbable. But this system is not fully perfect. Only using one raycast to detect a wall means that it has problems detecting particularly thin platforms. I'm not quite sure what I want to do about that yet. Adding another raycast for wall detection might fix this, but I could also just not use too many thin platforms. I'm gonna revisit this once I start with the actual level design. So now all that is left is a way to win the game. To win, you have to destroy a certain amount of targets in a level. This means that there should be a few ways of dealing with those. So I decided to first re-implement the grenades of the prototype. They can be replicated quite easily. I use a node, not unlike the hookshot nodes, as a grenade launcher. From there I spawn a grenade once a button is released. Pressing the button starts a timer, which is used to calculate the throw strength. The actual grenade is a rigid body 3D. This means that it already has all the necessary functionality to semi-realistically bounce and spin. The grenade itself has multiple states. Once it gets thrown, it starts a countdown. Once that one is finished, it changes into the exploding state. It is important to note that at this point you will have to freeze the grenade so it stops rolling and disable all its collision layers and masks. In this state, it first checks if it hits anything. This check is only done once in the beginning by reading all the bodies inside a predefined spherical area. Then it hides the model itself and quickly grows 5 3D sprites to emulate the explosion. The visuals are obviously quite temporary, which is why I just use a quick solution. And I think it looks fine if you're going for more of an older console aesthetic. Once they have fully expanded, the grenade switches to the next state, where the sprites quickly become transparent. And once they are fully transparent, I just delete the whole object. Having implemented all this, I was still left with some problems. Like how exactly those grenades would be limited. I could just let you throw as many as you wanted, like it currently is in this test level, but that feels kind of wrong for a game. So next I'm gonna have to decide on whether I want to have the grenades be completely limited, maybe add additional ones as collectibles inside the levels, or if I want to have them recharge like they do in the prototype. But this is a question for future GLF. Whatever my choice will be, it might still leave the player in awkward situations where they will be unable to destroy a target, which is why I added melee attacks. There are 2 of them, a melee hit and a mid-air kick. Both come with their own pros and cons. The melee hit can only be carried out while you stand firmly on the ground, and it removes basically all momentum you had built up. But it returns control to you quite quickly. The air kick on the other hand locks your attack rotation and has quite some ending lag, which is especially noticeable when you land on the floor and you have to stand back up. But it has a larger hitbox, while also shrinking your own effective body size, which might make it possible to fit through small spaces if you are skilled enough. So this is where this week's development ended. As expected, a lot of work went into making the hook feel decent to use, and I have not yet started on any of the visuals. All that is left to make is a plan for the next week. I want to re-implement the stopwatch, a UI to show your progress, a fail state, meaning the possibility for the character to die, maybe make some small sketches to plan the visual style, and work on the level design for the demo. This might sound like quite a few things, but some of the things I had already working in the prototype already and only have to clean up. That only leaves figuring out the visual style and the level design, both of which will definitely not be finished by next week, but they will take some time and multiple iterations, so better start off early. And by level design, I don't mean a fully polished level. I'm thinking more of those mostly empty levels you sometimes see in documentaries, where only the basic level shape is designed. There's probably a fancier term to describe them, but finding that out might also be something for future me as well. So, if you're interested in this dev process, or just want to know when you can play around with the slingshots yourself, feel free to subscribe. And if you have any questions, ideas on cool art directions this game could take, or just want to let me know how you could have coded literally every single line better than I did, let me know in the comments. Well then, see you next week.